Right now, as you watch this, there's a $13 billion American aircraft carrier sitting in the Persian Gulf. It is the most advanced piece of military hardware in human history, and yet it is currently being held hostage by a piece of technology that costs less than a used Ford F-150. While the Pentagon holds press conferences about air supremacy, the ground truth is that the U.S. Navy has lost control of the world's most important waterway. They won't tell you that our billion-dollar Aegis destroyers are functionally blind to the scooter subs currently saturating the Strait of Hormuz. They won't tell you that Donald Trump and his advisors are staring at a map of the Zagros Mountains and realizing there is no win button left to push. I'm Cade Sterling. I spent my career as a Navy SEAL commander, and I've seen what happens when high-level political hubris meets low-level tactical reality. This isn't just another Middle Eastern skirmish. This is the culmination of a 30-year strategic masterclass by Benjamin Netanyahu, designed to anchor the American military into a conflict it cannot win and cannot leave. As the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, waits in the shadows, he isn't counting his fallen soldiers. He's counting our remaining missiles. We are 19 days into a fatal mistake that is systematically dismantling the petrodollar and the American middle class. This is the Sterling Report. If you want the sanitized version, go to cable news. If you want the ground truth, stay right here. To understand the fatal mistake Washington just made, you have to stop looking at February 28, 2026, and start looking back 30 years. This war wasn't a reaction to a sudden threat. It was the final act of a long-term strategic play by Benjamin Netanyahu and the hardliners in Tel Aviv. For 3 decades, the Israeli leadership has had one singular goal: to ensure that no regional power could challenge them, and to use the American military as a blunt instrument to achieve that goal. We've seen the performances at the UN, the red line drawings on cardboard, the leaked intelligence that always seemed to point toward an immediate Iranian nuclear threat that never quite materialized. The plan was simple: drown the American bulldog in Middle Eastern blood so deeply that it could never leave. They watched the U.S. try to pivot to Asia to face China, and they panicked. They knew that if the U.S. left the region, Israel would be forced to actually negotiate with its neighbors. So, they engineered a scenario where the U.S. had no choice but to strike. They manipulated the intelligence, they leaned on their lobbyists in D.C., and they pushed the American leadership into a corner. Now, the U.S. is bogged down in a mountain fortress, Israel has its regional vacuum, and the American taxpayer is left holding a bill that can never be paid. This wasn't an accident of history. It was a masterpiece of political engineering. It was a 30-year bait and switch where American tactical excellence was traded for Israeli regional dominance. When you look at the archives of the last 3 decades, every single intelligence failure and every urgent warning was a brick in the wall of this trap. They played on American fears of nuclear proliferation while systematically dismantling every diplomatic off-ramp. They didn't just want Iran stopped. They wanted the United States permanently tethered to the Middle East as a security guarantor that pays in blood, while they reap the strategic rewards. This is the sunk cost fallacy, weaponized against a superpower, and Washington walked right into it with eyes wide shut. In the Navy, we live by 2 terms that the general public rarely hears: sea control and sea denial. To understand why the U.S. Navy is currently paralyzed in the Gulf, you have to understand the difference. Think of the ocean like a massive highway. Sea control is like being the police. You own the road, you set the speed limit, and you make sure your trucks get through safely. For 80 years, the U.S. Navy had total sea control, but there is a cheaper, deadlier version called sea denial. Sea denial is like being a saboteur who blows up the bridge. You don't need to own the road, you just need to make sure nobody can use it. And right now, Iran has achieved total sea denial in the most consequential waters on Earth. They didn't do it with billion-dollar destroyers or stealth jets. They did it with scooter subs. Iran understands that they cannot win a conventional naval battle against a U.S. carrier strike group. So they didn't try. Instead, they perfected the art of underwater guerrilla warfare. They built thousands of small, unmanned underwater vehicles, or UUVs. But these aren't high-tech drones. They are powered by simple, noisy combustion motors, literally the same kind of engine you'd find in a Vespa scooter or a lawnmower. Why does this work? Because our $500 million sonar systems are tuned to find giant, quiet nuclear submarines. When a tiny plastic scooter sub chugs along at 5 knots, it produces a sound that our computers filter out as background noise, like a school of fish or a distant boat engine. They are made of fiberglass, meaning radar bounces off them or goes right through them. These explosive scooters carry a shaped charge that punches a hole right below the waterline of a tanker. One hit doesn't sink the ship, but it causes a massive oil spill and forces the crew to abandon. But it goes deeper than just the tech. These UUVs operate in swarms. Our Aegis combat systems are designed to track high-speed incoming missiles, not 500 slow-moving plastic tubes barely submerged under the waves. It's a sensory overload. By the time a destroyer identifies a threat, there are 20 more already within the minimum engagement zone. We are literally using million-dollar torpedoes to try and hit things that cost less than a laptop. It is the ultimate asymmetry. Iran has turned the Persian Gulf into a graveyard for the concept of naval hegemony. They have proved that you don't need a navy to defeat a navy. You just need to make the sea too dangerous for trade to exist. This leads us to the invisible war of economics. Washington is counting the number of buildings they've leveled in Tehran, but the Iranians are counting the number of interceptor missiles we have left in our magazines. This is the part that makes the 4-star generals at the Pentagon sweat at night. Our military is what I call an upside-down pyramid. We have spent decades and trillions of dollars building performance weapons, things like the F-35 and our carrier groups. These were designed to intimidate the Soviet Union in a war that was supposed to last 2 weeks. They were never, ever designed for a grinding war of attrition against a dispersed enemy using cheap, disposable technology. Every time Iran launches a $50,000 Shahed drone or a $20,000 scooter sub, we have to fire a $2.1 million RIM 161 or a Patriot missile to stop it. Let's do the simple math. If Iran launches 100 drones, that costs them $5 million. To stop those 100 drones, it costs us $210 million. We are trading millions to stop thousands. It is a suicide note for the American Treasury. We are currently burning through our precision munitions faster than we can manufacture them. The lead time for a single Tomahawk or Patriot missile is months, sometimes years. Iran, meanwhile, is printing drones in garage-style workshops using off-the-shelf parts from Alibaba and hobbyist drone controllers. But the attrition isn't just financial, it's industrial. The U.S. industrial base is optimized for high-end, low-volume production. We can't scale up to meet the demands of a swarm-based war. Iran, on the other hand, is optimized for low-end, high volume. They can lose 1,000 drones a week and not blink. We lose 50 interceptors and our carrier groups have to withdraw to rearm, leaving the tankers unprotected. Khamenei knows that he doesn't need to sink a single ship to win. He just needs to wait for our magazines to go dry. We are literally shooting our own national savings into the Persian Gulf to intercept plastic lawnmowers. While our defense contractors are popping champagne over the new orders for missiles, the American taxpayer is being fed into a wood chipper. If the global economy is a human body, the Strait of Hormuz is the carotid artery. It supplies the lifeblood, oil and gas, that keeps the brain and the heart functioning. Iran hasn't just blocked this artery, they have placed a permanent tourniquet on it. 20% of the world's petroleum and 25% of its LNG are currently stranded. Imagine you're at a gas station and the price jumps from $3.50 to $7 overnight. That isn't a supply issue, it's a security issue. The U.S. security guarantee for global shipping, which has underpinned the global economy since the end of World War II, has effectively expired. For decades, the world used the U.S. dollar because we promised to keep the oceans safe for trade. If the U.S. Navy cannot protect a tanker in the Strait of Hormuz from a scooter sub, then the U.S. Navy is no longer the guarantor of global trade. This realization is currently rippling through every boardroom in Tokyo, Berlin, and Seoul. They are realizing that the American security umbrella is full of holes, and they are starting to look for new umbrellas. This tourniquet effect is cascading. It's not just about the price of gas, it's about the cost of everything. Plastics, fertilizers, shipping costs for every toy and tool made in Asia. All of it is pegged to the security of this 21-mile-wide stretch of water. By allowing the strait to become a contestable zone, Washington has admitted that it can no longer enforce the rules of global commerce. This is the Suez moment for the United States. Just as the British Empire realized in 1956 that it could no longer control the world's choke points, the U.S. is realizing in 2026 that its power is a mile wide and an inch deep. We are watching the foundation of the post-World War II world order crack under the pressure of a few thousand naval mines and cheap drones. This is the part that should terrify every American. Our closest allies have left the room.
When the U.S. called for a coalition of the willing to secure the strait, the response was a deafening no. Australia, Germany, Japan, Greece, the countries that have stood by us for 80 years, all looked at the mission profile and declined. Why? Because they are cold-blooded survivors. They see that the U.S. is governed by hubris, and they don't want to be dragged down with a sinking ship. These countries are already negotiating their own side deals. They are looking at the East. They are looking at the yuan for oil pivot. They realize that the U.S. is fighting a war of choice for a 30-year-old foreign agenda, while their own citizens are facing an energy collapse. When your best friends won't walk into the fight with you, it's because they've already realized the fight is lost. This isn't just about military support, it's about diplomatic legitimacy. Without the support of the international community, this isn't a war to protect global trade, it's a private American vendetta. Our allies are realizing that the U.S. can no longer provide the stability it promises. They are watching us burn through our munitions and our credibility, and they are making the calculation that China, or even Russia, might be a more stable long-term partner for energy security. We are standing alone in the Gulf, paying $1.5 billion a day for a war that our allies have already checked out of. We are the world's policemen, but we've run out of gas and our backup isn't coming. This is the definition of geopolitical isolation. As a former SEAL, I can tell you that air power is a performance. It's great for the nightly news, it's great for the campaign trail, but it doesn't win wars. To win, you have to go in. And a ground invasion of Iran is a logistical suicide mission. Iran is a mountain fortress. Imagine trying to drive a semi-truck through a narrow canyon while people are throwing rocks at you from 500 feet up. Now replace the rocks with anti-tank missiles and suicide drones. The Zagros Mountains aren't just hills, they are vertical mazes where our technology loses its edge. Satellites can't see through thousands of feet of solid granite. GPS signals bounce and degrade in deep valleys. Thermal imaging is useless against a fighter sitting in a cave with a portable heater. We don't have enough trucks. We don't have enough fuel tankers. And we certainly don't have enough soldiers to protect those lines. Iran has spent 40 years preparing for this. They have ghost cells, groups of 3 to 5 fighters who live in the mountains, carry their own food, and wait for a supply truck to pass. They don't wear uniforms. They don't use radios that we can jam. They use runners and handwritten notes. We can't see them with satellites, and we can't hit them with drones.
Every mile of road we try to secure requires an entire battalion to guard it. And even then, a single guy with a $500 RPG can take out $1 million fuel truck and block the entire convoy. If we go in, we will be encircled within weeks. We'll have thousands of troops trapped in mountain valleys, running out of water and ammo, while Washington debates whether or not to send more drones. It would require a national draft, sending 18-year-old boys into a logistical black hole where they are outgunned by the geography itself. It's a theater of war where our billion-dollar toys become paperweights. There is a fundamental misunderstanding in Washington about the Iranian mind. The Pentagon operates on a business logic. If you kill the CEO, the company fails. If you blow up the headquarters, the employees go home. But in the Shia world of Ali Khamenei, martyrdom isn't a defeat, it's a recruitment strategy.
When we killed the supreme leader, we didn't end the war, we electrified it. We provided a galvanizing sacrifice that justifies 20 more years of resistance.
In our culture, we value the preservation of life and the avoidance of risk. In their military culture, specifically within the IRGC, the sacrifice of life for the homeland is the ultimate promotion. You cannot deter an enemy that isn't afraid to die. You cannot negotiate with a force that views a JDAM strike on their headquarters as a holy blessing that proves they are on the right side of history. By using maximum force, we have played right into their narrative. We have confirmed everything they've said about the Great Satan for 40 years. Furthermore, decapitation strikes only work if the organization is top-heavy. Iran is decentralized. They have shadow commanders in every province who have been waiting for the central head to be cut off so they can take the initiative. By killing the moderates and the central negotiators, we have left the war in the hands of the true believers, the ones who want the world to burn so they can meet their maker. We didn't kill the snake. We just cut it into 1,000 smaller, angrier snakes that no longer have a master to hold them back. Why does all this matter to you at home? Because of the petrodollar. Since the 70s, the US dollar has been the world's reserve currency because oil is traded in dollars. This creates a constant demand for our currency, which allows us to print money and run up huge debts without our economy crashing. This is the secret engine of American prosperity. The reason you can buy a cheap TV from China and a car from Japan. Iran knows this is our thermal exhaust port. They are now offering a peace for energy deal to the rest of the world. They are telling Asia and Europe, we will open the strait and resume oil flow, but only for those who pay in Chinese yuan or a new BRICS-based currency. If that happens, the demand for the US dollar vanishes. The dollar stops being a global necessity and becomes just another piece of paper. If the petrodollar dies, your bank account loses 30 to 40% of its purchasing power overnight. Everything you buy, milk, eggs, gas, becomes twice as expensive because our money is suddenly worth less on the global market. This is the true trap. The war in the Gulf isn't just a military conflict. It is a financial ambush designed to decouple the world from the American financial system. Washington is currently spending trillions of dollars to protect a system that their very actions are destroying. It is a circular firing squad where the middle class is the target. We are fighting to protect the dollar while the war itself provides the excuse for the world to abandon it. Washington's doctrine of decapitation is a relic of the Cold War. They thought that by killing Khamenei and the top generals, the body would go limp. They were wrong. Iran has spent 20 years building a military hydra. Every province, every militia, every drone cell is autonomous. Think of it like the internet. If you shut down one server in New York, the rest of the web still works. That is the Iranian military. They don't need orders from Tehran to keep fighting. They have preset mission parameters. If the light goes out in the capital, sink everything in your sector. In fact, by killing the central leadership, we've made the war harder to end. There is no one left to sign a surrender document. There is no one left to negotiate with. We are now fighting 100 different independent fires, and we don't have enough water to put out even 10 of them. This decentralization extends to their manufacturing. You can't bomb their drone factories because they aren't factories. They are a network of 300 small workshops in residential basements. You can't cut off their supply lines because they are supplied by the local black market and hidden stockpiles that were buried 10 years ago. Each regional commander is now a warlord with his own stockpile of drones and scooter subs and his own personal grudge against the United States. We've traded a single enemy for 1,000 ghosts that we cannot find and cannot kill. History tells us how this ends. Great powers don't usually die from one big defeat. They die from strategic exhaustion. They die by trying to do too much, too far away, for too long, with too few allies. We are currently the Athenian Empire in Sicily. We are Napoleon in Russia. We are the British in Afghanistan. We have confused our military dominance with the ability to impose our will on reality. The trap wasn't just the missiles or the drones. The trap was our own hubris, the belief that the normal rules of warfare, geography, and economics didn't apply to us because we have better computers and faster planes. But a billion-dollar plane can't hold a mountain pass, and a carrier group can't stop an economic shift. We are at the beginning of a very long, very painful chapter. The cost of this fatal mistake will be paid by your children, in a currency that is losing its value every time a scooter sub hits a tanker. We have entered the era of the unraveling, and the people at the helm are still reading from a 1945 script. We are trying to maintain a world that no longer exists, using methods that no longer work, while our enemies laugh at our predictable responses. This is the end of the line for the global policeman model, and the transition to whatever comes next is going to be violent, expensive, and personal. In the SEAL teams, we know that complacency kills.
The most dangerous thing you can do right now is believe the sanitized version of this disaster being fed to you by the experts in Washington. This channel exists for one reason: to provide the objective, tactical intelligence you won't find on a cable news teleprompter. Understanding the ground truth is a responsibility. It's not about being a doomer, it's about being a realist so you can protect your family and your future. If you value this type of direct professional analysis, I invite you to join this community. By engaging with these briefings, by subscribing and signaling that you want the truth, you help ensure that these perspectives aren't buried by the noise of the official narrative. We aren't here for the theater, we're here for the strategy. The map says we are in trouble. The math says we are losing. The allies say we are alone. The only way forward is to look at the reality clearly and prepare for the world that is actually coming, not the one we wish we still had. Stay focused, stay informed, and above all, stay frosty.